the beans like we used to do. Pass the beans. Pass the beans like we used to do. Pass the beans.
Pass the beans.
Pass the beans.
Pass the beans.
Pass the beans. The Beans Talk. Hey, Bean fam. It is the Beans Talk podcast, and we are four educators of color, bringing you raw, authentic conversation about society views and community engagement. Everybody, I am Fabs.
I'm Steph, guys. What's up?
Hey, crew. It's Ro.
And this is TJ.
What it do, everybody? We're back for another episode.
Yes, we are.
Yes. Hey, guys. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving.
Word.
Mine was okay, actually. I ate all right. There was food for me.
Because y'all are vegan. Le food bon. Did y'all even eat? Did y'all eat?
We did.
Yes, they
and we're
ate.
not vegan.
We ate. We're not vegan. That's the goal.
They're
actually.
pretty damn close.
What?
Is there
You
a
guys
step
just-
after vegan? Like,
Raw
what's after
vegan.
it?
Death.
And then what?
Death.
You eat
Air.
Yeah, just air. You eat
Air and
after
water
that.
and salt.
You're probably going to be there soon.
No, they're not.
Just
Nah.
eating air. It's like-
I know.
There is an
Can I
endless
have
supply.
a bit of that?
I think that's hilarious. Nah, but there, I bet there was food for y'all to eat. Like, I know y'all not vegan. Y'all are just living a better lifestyle, man. And I'm with it.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to.
No, success, man. All right, y'all. So I spent some time with my mama last weekend, which was cool. I like her sometimes, just on the weekends. And we were listening to mad Haitian music.
Dope.
Another day in the life of Rowan Augustine. But something I think that is so dope. Like, I was talking to my mom and I was like, Mommy, like, what's one of your favorite song lyrics? And she was like, Kisa? I was like, okay, let me say it in Creole. And I was like, Mommy, what's a line from a song that you absolutely love, that you absolutely live by? And the one that she said was, I'll translate it, is Poisson te fait de l'eau confiance, mais c'est de l'eau qui bouillit, which translates to that a fish trusted the water, but it's the water that boiled it or killed it. And so just to be like mindful of like who you keep around you. And I was like, yo, that's a solid ass question to ask. So for y'all, Bean fam, what is y'all's favorite song lyric?
Oh, man. Dang, I have to think about that.
That's a tough one.
That really is.
I know.
I'm going to give mine. It just popped into my head. It's from this new song from A Great Big World. They are the people that sang Say Something I'm Giving.
Yes.
So they have a new song called Fall on Me. And in the song, it's just a small part. He says, I can't see the future, but I know that it's there. And I don't know. It's something about that. It's like it gives me something about that line. It like is hopeful because like it's true. You can't see the future, but you know it's coming, and you know that it's upon you. I don't know. That part just strikes a chord in me.
Dope, brother, man. Dope.
Wow. I'm tough. This is tough for me.
One of them.
I'm terrible
One
with
of your
lyrics.
very favorite lyrics. Because I know all of us here, we love music.
We
so just
love music. It's
one
so
that comes
hard
to
to
mind.
even just like come up with one. I don't know.
I feel like Fabiola, you told me you liked My Neck and My Back.
Okay.
Didn't you say that?
You couldn't even say that with a serious face. Like, that's definitely a no-go for me.
Could be.
No,
Figure something out.
definitely. I'm terrible with lyrics, so I'm going to have to take a little bit more time on this.
I feel like I would have one for you. That
Okay.
you
What
you
say that
Please.
Fabiola like says often, and I mean it's embodied by your tattoo. Que sera, sera.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever will
That's
be.
true. I do have that on my
I don't
skin.
know if that would be. I know that's one of the.
That actually, yeah, no, that does resonate for me. I mean, it's not everything, but that tattoo definitely took me through some tough times. I'm not gonna lie.
That's dope.
And there's a lot behind it. My mom used to always sing the song inside the shower, and a lot of times I would listen in my own head to her singing that song during some tough times, and which is part of the reason why I put that on my arm. But yes, whatever will be is the translation for que sera, sera. And I do stand by that. It's kind of like, you know, you could put your energy into creating some kind of result, but at the end of the day, there are so many things out of your control.
Yep.
That you just have to accept and find a way to maneuver yourself. So yeah, thank you for that. That's true. That is one lyric that definitely resonates with me.
So I like a lot of Drake, and I'm just thinking about that lyric from, I forgot what that song was with Lil Wayne in it.
Which
dun,
one?
dun,
Dun dun dun. I don't know.
I'm like,
Nancy.
No, it
the
wasn't.
one you came, how you came in? I thought you knew it.
I know. I thought Fabiola knew
I
it
do that
too.
all the time.
It was so annoying.
It was.
But it was just like, life is a beach. I'm just playing in the sand.
Okay.
Okay.
But you don't know the name of that song?
Of course not.
DJ De La Rosa.
I know. I'm
need you
slacking.
to,
I'm
like-
sorry.
Wait, is
Oh,
that the
right above it.
Right.
I know you're right above it. And we're on. Okay, forget it.
It's okay, baby. It's okay.
Okay.
This is your lyric.
Okay, so life is a beach. I'm just playing in the sand. I'm sure I
Okay.
have a lot more lyrics that come that are deep to me, but that one came up for me.
That one came to mind.
Yeah,
Perfect.
just
y'all.
like enjoying life.
I'm surprised it wasn't like
Aaliyah.
I know. That's what I thought she was gonna do too.
definitely
Aaliyah
waiting on an
song.
Aaliyah song, to be honest.
I was trying to think about an Aaliyah song. You know, I love the song Loose Rap. It's, about
Sick
the
and tired of
haters.
little traps.
Definitely doesn't.
Yeah,
That was rough. Yeah.
Y'all,
sound like that.
Y'all, please forgive Ro for that. Please forgive her.
I don't know what that was, homie. That wasn't it. That wasn't it.
No, man.
No, but seriously, I mean, I just love music so much. It's hard to boil it down just to one line. but
It is.
Those were like the things that came into my mind.
And that's what
That's
what I
a
wanted.
tough question though, for real.
Yeah.
Trying to think.
Let us know, Ro.
Even for me, like I know for the longest time on my Facebook, when I made it back in 2007, emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Bob Marley redemption song. That was always one of my. I really still think it's in my bio on Facebook, and I have not edited it. I think that line is so powerful, man. None but ourselves can free our minds. And I think it kind of goes back to, somehow I'm going to make a connection to Steph, something you had asked us, like who brings you joy?
Yeah.
And you said it should be yourself. And I feel like we are the ones who can control our minds. We can control what brings us joy. We can control what's a trigger. We control it all. And I just thought that lyric was so great. So Bob Marley, redemption song.
That's a good one.
That's a really good one.
That's solid. Solid.
Life is a
What-
beach.
What was the quote your mom said? Your mom said she liked. Could you tell it again?
You want to hear it in Creole?
No, in English.
Okay, hold on. Poisson te fait de l'eau confiance, mais c'est de l'eau qui bouillit. The fish trusted the water, but it's the water that boils it.
I think that's interesting because when you said it, like a fish needs water to live. So of course you're going to trust it. And it just kind of, I don't know, it kind of has I feel it's like a kind of dark, like you can't even trust the things around you that you need. Like that.
That's real.
No, I
You
didn't
know?
think about it like that.
Yeah, that's what I thought when you first said it, and I didn't have time to say it. But yeah, that's a interesting quote.
Yo, getting deep already.
Dark, right?
Wow. Well, with that being said, I love that you brought that to the table, and especially your Bob Marley lyric. I think that's actually going to be very important as we transition into this next conversation. So today we have a conversation, and it's the debate segment, where we talk about some touchy conversations or topics. And, we might side on, we might end up on different sides of the conversation. But of course, at the end of the day, it's all love.
Exactly.
But yeah, so this was a while ago. It was probably like about a couple months ago, to be honest. And I don't want to say that it's like not relevant. I still think it is relevant, and it's something that I have been thinking about, pretty regularly. So let me just go ahead and give you guys a little bit of some background, some information.
All right.
So on September 6, 2018, ex-Dallas police officer entered the Dallas, Texas apartment of Botham Jean and fatally shot him. Now, the mix-up, quote unquote, is that she thought it was her apartment and he was a burglar. Mind you, sources detail that at the time he was shot dead, he was eating ice cream and watching TV. Initially charged with manslaughter, protests pushed accusations of racial bias, resulting in Guyger, being found guilty of murder on October 1st, 2019. Let me just point out that I didn't know that this thing was actually present for like over a year.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point that out. It only became relevant now, which is really weird. But she was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Now, we've had situations like these time and time again, urging an uproar nationally, especially in the Black community. But what really put the community off balance was how the verdict ended and how the perpetrator was treated during the trial and after the trial. And I think that's really where this debate is going to reside. So the brother, Brandt Jean, what he did was basically, okay, I'm not even going to say, I don't want to give any, I don't want to prime your minds at all. So I'm going to keep my verbiage limited. So basically what he did was ask the court to see if he can actually hug the perpetrator. And they allowed it. And so he gave her a hug and he was basically saying, like, I love you as a person and I forgive you. And also at the end of that, the judge as well gave her a hug, and some sources are detailing that she also gave her a Bible. Okay, so now the uproar here is whether or not he should have given a hug, given the current societal climate surrounding race, or not. How should he have actually reacted? How would you guys have reacted to something like this? Does it frustrate you? Does it bother you at all?
To be honest, it doesn't bother me. I think the case itself is unsettling about her shooting, this person that was sitting in his house eating ice cream. That is unsettling. For me, the family member of the person who died, them giving her a hug, I think that's a personal choice. That's a personal act of forgiveness, and maybe that was his way of getting some closure. I don't have a problem with that. I think, it does raise questions on like, I think would that have been a reaction if the police officer wasn't female? That's something I think of, or like maybe if they had been a Black man, but I don't know. I don't have a problem with that personally.
Okay. I like how you guys are, you have no comment?
She's processing.
Yeah.
You're processing. Okay, that's fine. But there were a lot of people on Twitter that were tripping about this, very frustrated. Some were thinking like this was the ultimate form of forgiveness and, thinking religiously, especially as it pertains to Christianity, which I believe they are. It's like, this is like, wow, this is a huge form of forgiveness and we should learn from him type of thing. And there are other people that's saying that was not a showing of Christian grace. That de-radicalized white supremacist, domicile white Jesus, rhetorical trash, and erroneously cloaked in the gospel. Many a Black have died because of this, and some of them are still walking. So people are extremely frustrated by the fact that he even gave her a hug. And the way that people are also describing it was that he pleaded to give her a hug. Like, can I please give her this hug? And, they kind of leapt into each other's arms at the end of that verdict, or before the verdict really, because at the end she had to walk out. But people thought that was pretty much garbage and was detrimental to the Black community.
I think we should definitely get that video up in conjunction with this conversation. So, our audience can join us in this discussion. I said what I said 2 months ago, and what I said still remains. That hug to me was bullshit. And that's how I feel. When I think about the racial climate of America and all of the layers, the historical layers of things that have gone on racially. One, I believe just because you hug somebody doesn't mean that you've gone through the process of forgiveness. So like forgiveness does not necessarily mean hugging someone, number one. And then when you look at the case and you see all of sort of the racially charged conversation around it and how it went down, for me, it just reinforced this idea of, it was an essay or piece I read about a white woman's tears. And it's like, for me, this woman gets 10 years for literally walking into this man's house, shooting him dead.
In his home.
And he's home in his place. That already is like injustice. And even one, I feel like she probably would have gotten away with it if she was a white cop, a white male cop, excuse me. But she was a woman, so, you know, she's bought a little bit lower on the totem pole. So let's just give her a little bit, 10 years. She starts crying. They have this dramatic, theatrical courtroom showing of him leaping into her arms. And then to her, it's like, wow, I don't really have to sit and reflect on the part that I've played inside of this systemic system of oppression and prejudice and racism, because I've been like washed by forgiveness from this Black man. And to me, it just was a poor imagery of, or it was just a poor image of showing that any justice was ever reached. And that's my opinion on that. I don't know. I just feel like for centuries, like, and even if you're thinking about our education system now, a white woman cries or shows any type of vulnerability,
that's
everyone runs to their rescue. We literally are like popping our titties into white women's mouths every time they start crying, literally, and their kids' mouths.
For real.
For the past however many years, right? And so, and then you connect this whole thing about religion to it. We've been kind of spoon-fed the oppressor's religion. I mean, I just feel like there's so many layers to this that's exhausting. And you're just like, every time you hear this, I'm like, I'm tired. I'm done talking about this. Like, it's annoying.
I completely disagree, Steph. I'm sorry. Like, I think that what you're saying is true. It is it's like a lot of layers to, you know, what the implications. There's a lot of implications. However, right, I feel like you cannot put all of that on the shoulders of what this man decided to do, right? No one forced him to hug her. It seemed like a very personal choice. And like, who are we to say, well, no, like, he chose to do that after his brother was shot. Maybe
by
that
this
was
woman.
Exactly. Maybe that was his form. I mean, we don't know what's going through his head. He chose to do it. And yeah, I agree with you, right? Like, there is, I mean, we could zoom out and say like, oh, well, this isn't okay because of a bigger issue, but that, like, as far as his personal choice, I feel like it was coming from a place clearly of graciousness on his part. I mean, why else would he choose to hug her?
Because he felt like he had to.
And I completely...
He felt like he had to?
I feel like, TJ, what you're saying is completely valid. Like, I'm not disagreeing with anybody's perspectives on this. This is my perspective. And I'm not saying that he consciously should be held responsible for all of this. But we live inside of this world and this society with these images that any actions or things that we do have consequences. And that one, in this particular sense, I think was a poor one, regardless if it was his personal decision and not just given the layers of historical oppression and prejudice. Whether he decided to do that for himself, that's fine. I don't really care about what he did for himself. I'm more so thinking about the larger implications of images that has on the effect for the larger public. And I just think that it's damaging.
So what would have been the alternative? Him to be upset and hold hatred in his heart for her? I mean, she got 10 years in prison. I'm not saying that's enough.
Which is nothing.
However, it's like, what's the alternative? Like, to me, I personally see like this person did this terrible thing and he showed that he can look beyond. I mean, his brother died. To me, it's not even about, it's about like, yo, this person just killed his brother.
It's always about race.
Well, I don't know. I feel like if we are constantly going back to that narrative and putting a spin on every single thing, even something that to me shouldn't have this like negative lens on it, right? Then we'll never move past it, because I don't understand how someone giving someone a hug after they killed their brother, how could you spin that into like, oh, he shouldn't have done that? Like,
I think everybody approaches everything from their own personal experiences and what they've been through. For me, I've lost a sibling behind some racial shit. And so I'm viewing it from my perspective, just the way that you'll view it from your perspective, Ro will view it from her perspective, Fabs will view it from her perspective. And that's my perspective, and I stand by it.
So here's my thing. I think Brother Man was probably thinking that he was probably thinking like, okay, I forgive her. I don't think there's any forgiveness, to be honest, because forgive ou pas, you still wrongfully killed my brother. I didn't know that he like was begging to hug Shorty. So I didn't really read into this.
People did describe it as him pleading for it.
I didn't read into it as much. And so Fab Bibi, thank you for dropping those details. I think it was just unnecessary. Like, I didn't see the point. Like, why you got to hug her for? For what?
Would it have made it better if she had done this? I mean, if he had done this off camera, would that make a difference?
I mean, court proceedings are taped.
I'm much so thinking about the images and just like the image that shows publicly. I think we had like a conversation last season about like celebrities and the things that they do and
on
the way,
platforms.
and how they use their platforms. It's just like publicity and having certain images out there, regardless of what they are, it can be damaging, and that's just how it is. I'm not saying it's neither right or wrong, but I literally think that hug portrayed an image that reinforced systemic oppression, regardless of what the intention was.
Because we don't know the intention.
We don't. And we
I'm just looking at the pictures.
What it was.
His mom kind of spoke to it a little bit, which was really what I wanted to know mostly about, because to me, it was like, I'll give my
go ahead.
I'll give my thoughts on that in a second.
It's right
but what his mom basically said was that ever since his brother had passed, he was basically just cocooned. He was to himself. He was obviously depressed for a very valid reason, and was having a tough time. And I think to her, this was the greatest form of emotion in a very long time that he had expressed at all. And she prefaced that what he had done was brave. She didn't know that he was going to do what it is that he was going to do when they talked about it. But she believes that the reason why they did was a lot because of the fact that he was raised in a church. And, and forgiveness is taught, day in and day out.
Forgiving white people is taught day in and day out.
Well, yeah.
But
continue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, you are definitely putting a magnifying glass on white people when it comes to forgiveness. But I think what the mom was saying was that it's forgiveness in general, and I think that's
what I think too.
That's because of the fact that that's their religion. That's just pretty much how that works. And some people are starting to kind of like break it apart in terms of like religions for Jesus Christ, and then there's the other religion that's still Christian religion, but also being a woke Christian. So now there are different sides to that aspect as well, but. What's interesting to me is I wonder whether or not we as Black people are putting ourselves inside of this, cage at all, like a mental cage. You know what I mean? I feel like we're constantly placing ourselves inside of this angry space. You know what I mean? And oftentimes I feel like that might put us in a position where we're constantly angry, and I'm not saying that it's not validated. I'm definitely not saying that. And I think that a public display of something like this, especially with the societal climate that we're living in, it was inevitable that people were going to be frustrated. I was actually pretty shocked that some people thought that this was like, wow, this is an ultimate form of forgiveness. But that's also because I knew what would be predictable when it came to Black people or people of color. Like, wow, what the hell are you doing? Like, why would you give this colonizer a hug after murdering your brother. And for some people, this is his act of mourning. That's his own way of grieving. That was his own personal choice to be able to get through that. And now some people are not so much upset about what he had done, but more so about what the judge did, because the judge also gave the murderer a hug.
Yeah, that to me is a more I mean, I don't know. I just feel like, Steph brought up how, like, celebrities have a platform and you have to be careful about the images you put out. But this dude isn't a celebrity. He's a normal human being, and he felt moved to do something. How beat is it that, like, now we have to we can't even be compelled to just do something out of pure raw emotion. We have to stop and think, how are people going to interpret this? Like, who gives a shit? Like, if I was compelled to give her a hug, I would have done it. Now the judge, that was a force. But then I also think, like, would this have gotten a reaction if it were a white man that gave a white woman a hug, or a black person that gave a black person a hug for killing his brother? Like, probably not, right? But because it's a white and black person, it's like, oh my God, it's racial. Which is like,
it is.
We'll never move past it if every single time anything happens, everyone sees it through a lens of black and white.
I think that, like, I just go back to what I said before. Like, everybody has their perspectives and what they feel about this situation. But I liked how Fabiola said about this this idea of us constantly maybe creating cages for ourselves. So, like, I feel like whenever you get to a point where you're so extreme in one way of thinking or one way of doing things, that's when it becomes dangerous. Like me, I have my opinion about what this hug meant to me, but I'm not closed-minded to what other people think, and I respect what other people think as well, and understand it, like truly understand. Like, my experiences and someone else's experiences aren't going to be the same. But I think it becomes dangerous when people get too caught up in one way of thinking, one way or the other, to where they start, like, being gung-ho on one particular thing, and they start, like, moving forward with that and, like, kind of spewing really radicalized ideas and perceptions out there as it being right, or the right way of thinking, or the right way of doing things. And I think that's where it's gotten dangerous. And a lot of these cages have been built around us, which causes this outrage. You have the cage of organized religion. You have the cage of racism. You have the cage of oppression. So we're operating constantly within these many cages anyway. And if you aren't able to kind of dab in and dab out of that thoughtfully, and be able to kind of intersect and have a conversation across that without becoming so consumed by, like, the earthly things that are here, then you're doomed for as well. Like, I'm not about to go and get my panties in a bunch over this. I said what I said about it. I'm not about to go out and get picket signs and
at all,
and start, like, condemning somebody
word
because of it, or calling the brother a bad person, and, like, going on all these rants and rantages for what? The man did what he thought was right. I disagreed with the way that he did it or went about it because of the way I see things, and it's over.
But that's cool though. Like, yeah, I'm with you, Steph. Like, all right, he moved differently than I would have, but that's how he moved. I really don't. Maybe this might sound like messed up, but, like, keep it lim. Like, I don't care. Like, I wouldn't have done it personally, but he did it. I'll listen to people who are on both ends, people who agree with it, people who disagree with it, but I just know how I would move if it was me. And I know what I keep thinking about is if the roles were reversed, if it were like, Judge, would you have given black man a hug in the Bible? Like, that's what I always wonder about. Like, hey, you want to give her the Bible? That's dope. But would you have done the same if it was a black man going to prison for 10 years for killing a white individual? And that's the shit that I think, because I already know the answer. No. Maybe that's me still existing in this cage that I am in. But, like, I do not believe it would have been the same if it was a black man. And that's what makes me so hot. But not enough to go on a rant or have picket signs.
Not being flexible in terms of like understanding what other people think. And I think Fabiola's mainly talking about the people who are on Twitter and they're like forming these groups, hate groups and like spewing out like a lot of negativity about this and trying to get people to radicalize one way or the other. That's the dangerous part. Having a conversation like this is okay. But when you start taking it to the next level, that's when things just start to be like, oh, okay, now.
Yeah, and the judge, to me, I feel like that is a much more controversial, like an action that happened that I don't particularly agree with. The judge is supposed to be objective. He is not there to like.
This is a black woman, by the way. I just want to give. I didn't know that.
And it doesn't even matter to me. It's like you're a judge. Like it's to me, it's just not a place to be hugged. Like that's not your. I can take the brother doing it. That he was moved to do that, but judges aren't supposed to do that. It's like you're supposed to be an objective kind of.
Observer.
Yeah, an observer or judge, but that just to me felt strange. But
I just wonder if we're like constantly in a space of where we are in a mindset of like an eye for an eye, because that does create these extreme forms of thinking, and you want to, and I don't think anybody's actually consciously thinking about this. Like some people are, absolutely, and then some people aren't. And there is this, I think, a misconception of like, you're woke if you, if you are pro-black. And quite frankly, I'm not saying you're not woke. I think you might have one eye open, but at the same time, another eye is closed because what are we constantly seeing in the media? We're always constantly seeing certain things. And believe it or not, the media drives the people.
It does.
At the end of the day. And so I think if we're not able to really take like an objective lens at situations, and we're going to constantly be inside of this mental cage. Like you really have to start to ask the question, why? And you have to question certain things that are presented in front of you. We didn't hear about this for a whole year. Okay, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
We didn't hear about this for a whole year. Like it didn't become a national problem until a whole year and some change where she was actually convicted of this murder or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, think about that. And during a time where it really became heightened and now we're starting to segregate and become separate again in many different ways. Now there's the Black Christian church that's like, now we have Black Christians that are woke and then we have Black Christians that are not woke. And it's like, there's just going to be constant battle between groups. And I feel like that's really going to be our ultimate demise as a people. If you're not able to unify, how could you ever tackle a problem? You can't do that by yourself. But if you do that in a very large group, you could be a lot more effective. That's just, I don't know. I feel like a lot of times we're putting ourselves and operating out of an eye for an eye. And that's only causing more issues. We're just like two groups of blind people trying to lead each other. Like that's not, I don't know how effective that could actually be. And I don't know, again, I'm going to bring it back to media where, Black people are constantly presented in a particular view or in a particular light. And that means that you could be violent. You're not kind. You're overly sexualized. You're all of these different things. And what he received, the brother Brandt, he received, or at least I don't know. I need to confirm this, but he was put up or nominated to receive the Ethical Courage Award for a display of forgiveness from the law enforcement organization. So is that a bad thing? Or is that a good thing? Some people think that he shouldn't accept this award, but then some people think that he's well deserving of an award like this. And I'm wondering what you guys' thoughts are on that. Should he actually accept it, or should he have accepted it? If he did, I don't know. At the time of this recording, I don't know
I honestly don't think an award is necessary. If it was, I think it's just taking it too far. I don't know. So sometimes I feel like we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. Like if we do an act of compassion, it's twisted into like something hate-filled. If something hate-filled is shown, then it's reinforcing hate.
Yeah.
It's like nothing is ever like, I don't know. I really hate the climate that we are in And I hope that, having conversations like this and Steph said about, seeing perspectives outside of yourself and having conversations and disagreeing without being like radical views and pushing an agenda and hatred, that's not helping.
That's only going to cause another war.
And I swear, like people do it all the time and it's aggravating.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think he needs an award or like, he did it. If it came from a pure place and he was moved to do it, that should be a award enough. And we don't need to like give him something. I don't think.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That's cool.
TJ, I agree. I don't think it deserves all that. You get the he already did. He gave the woman the hug. It's done. Kudos to you, brother man. But yeah, I don't think an award is necessary.
What else is on your mind, Ro? It looks like you got a lot wrapping around right now.
So one of the biggest things for me is that like, I hate that, unfortunately, I cannot move through life outside of this race box. Like, I feel like race is always going to be factored in. Like, I thinking about the cages you speak of, like, I can see myself being freed from organized religion cages and other cages, but I just feel like this one race cage, it's really hard for me to function outside of it. Because like society just will not allow me to do that. Like I want to do it. Like I want to be like, yo, let me just exist and let me just be. But it's like, I don't know.
I get you. I feel you because you're constantly reminded of
all the time
that you are
24/7.
Yeah, I get you. I completely
and so,
understand.
Yeah, like that's just going on in my head right now. Like I'm not an extreme. I'm not an extremist, but it's just like, yo, will I ever be able to exist in this society where race is not gonna matter and it's always gonna matter? Like it's period.
Yeah. When you said that, Ro, the way that I was thinking of the cage is more of like a mindset type of cage in terms of like we're always like you should be proud of your race and operating inside of that. You should be proud of your religion operating inside of that. So it's not the tangible thing that's the cage. I think it's the mindset that's the cage. So like when you become so like involved inside of all the implications that those things have, that it starts to make you very like radical and unreasonable, closed-minded, and having this idea that your way is the right way and the only way, that's the cage.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So it's not like race is always going to be here. And I hope that it's always here.
Word.
Like I've always said, like I'm proud to be a Black woman, but I'm not going to become so like consumed by all of the negative things that might surround that to where I'm like operating outside of what I feel to be my natural spiritual way of operating. Like just because I'm a Black woman, I know Black women have gone through some things. I'm not about to hate all white women and be like on this rampage. Like, because then I'm not operating out of love anymore. And so I think that the cage is more so the mindset. And I think that for us to constantly be able to like reach that level of mental peace is to constantly be doing inward reflection on ourselves and understanding why we make the decisions we make and why we say the things that we say. So for example, I can like 100% say that I didn't like that hug. One, because it's a source of my own trauma of what I dealt with my brother and the racial implications around his death. That was a specific lens that I had towards that. And I know that it's a biased one and it's not right. It's something sourced from my trauma and that image didn't sit right for me because of that. And I can say that I don't agree with it. This is why, but I also like respect TJ's idea or people who agree with TJ because I think that's right too. Like I know I'm doing like inward self-reflection and knowing why my mind is thinking and operating the way that it is. And I can step out and I can step in. I can step out and I can step in. And that allows me to move with grace and move with peace and not get so caught up inside of my way is the right way.
And that's where it's a dangerous place, right?
That's where I think that's where the danger is. You know, I know that I have I struggle with organized religion that brings other people down because of my experience living in a same-sex relationship.
Same here.
Like that's a source of trauma for me. And I know that my perspectives are shaped by that source of trauma. And like when you can like step back and understand like how your beliefs and your ideas were shaped through your own experiences and how you were brought up, you can begin to decipher like, wow, I have this opinion right now, this very biased opinion that might be shaped from this particular experience that is not necessarily right, but it's the way I feel and it's still validated. But I'm not about to discount you and what you feel because your experiences shape the way that you think too.
Word.
So you're able to always, even if people think different from you, you're always able to handle people with love and grace. And I think that is the mental freedom that we should be striving for.
Well said.
And I also,
well
very
said.
absolutely. And I think that's the kind of mindset that will really free us, period, as a people and society, if we're able to just literally be like, whatever, you know what I mean? People do what it is that they want to do, simply because that's just how they feel like doing it. And us putting our own judgments onto how they move inside of this world, this crazy, crazy, crazy ass world. We don't have a place to place judgment on people like Brandt. Brandt was getting bullied for his own decisions. And so now that's creating a whole nother stress and a whole nother problem. And so, that's kind of like how Steph was basically saying. It's like, this is extreme form of thinking, an extreme form of acting.
Those people who are bullying him, right?
Yeah. Yes. That's their actions. But then there are people, vocalizing some things, and that what they're doing is just spewing out hate in every word that they're saying. And so to me, it only places us inside of this cycle where it's like, again, an eye for an eye. And then that also places us as a group, as a people, as society in this mental cage. And then we have smaller boxes even within that. And we continue to make these smaller boxes even within that. And so now it makes it harder and harder for us to even get out. When are we actually ever going to get out of that box? Those boxes.
Do
really.
we ever? Yeah.
Do we ever? How do we do that? And the way that Steph had just basically said that is just literally mind your fucking business.
And no, love and grace. Yeah.
Love and grace, yeah.
AKA mind your fucking business.
I like
That
was all with love. That was all love.
and grace. And grace.
Yeah, man. But thank you guys for putting in your thoughts and opinions on this. I really appreciate you guys, because this is honestly, it's been sitting on my mind, sitting on my heart, and I wanted to kind of bring it to the table, have like a small conversation surrounding it. And thanks for giving me your 2 cents.
Yeah, no
thank
problem.
you for bringing it up.
For real.
I think we will even have a good conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that actually brings me to the word of the day. Now I know, right? Word of the day.
I'm nervous.
This actually relates to what Fabiola and Steph said, but you were saying like, how do we break out of our cages? How do we end the cycle? So the word of the day is communion. All right. And Oxford Dictionary defines communion as the sharing or exchanging of intimate thoughts and feelings, especially when the exchange is on a mental or spiritual level. And I think that, we're having communion like right now, like the Beanstalk is a communion. And as the holiday season is approaching, I hope that people, our listeners and us, we have a space to commune and have a communion, because it honestly, it feeds the soul. Like I always feel better after having these discussions, regardless if we agree or disagree.
Word.
And I hope that during the holiday season, everyone has a space where they can have that experience, an experience of communion. So,
and then take that even further. To be honest, like let's have communions with groups that are more diverse. Let's have communions amongst us, amongst them.
Yeah.
And they can have communions amongst themselves, but the only way for any of us to really break these barriers, to break down the cages, is again if we do have, conversations amongst each other, not just like, because then otherwise you're fostering groupthink, which is also very dangerous.
Yep.
Very dangerous. So it's really important to have people that you're not familiar with, that you didn't grow up with and stuff, and have communions with them too.
Yep, absolutely. So
centered around love and grace, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I would say also, I'm glad that you mentioned the holiday time as well. Make sure that you are in and like taking care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally before you like enter into these communions.
Yeah.
I definitely feel around the holiday times, we feel like there's a lot of family events where maybe forced into situations or spaces where we are still holding on to traumas. We aren't quite ready to interact. We aren't quite ready to be in those spaces and feel like our best selves. So make sure you're taking care of yourself before any communion as well. Like you matter. So foster the seed within and then go to those communions and help those places grow.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I love that. Thank you. Thank you, TJ, for the word of the day.
No problem.
Really appreciate
No problem.
it. Everybody, that was another episode of the Beans Talk. We love you.
We love you guys.
Dulce.
I just
Ciao.
way go.
Hey!